Good morning, everybody. Judith from good old Chamber of Commerce Influencers Group. And we've had a few technical difficulties this morning. Good old Facebook, too, is pulling a few little trickies on us as well. But we are prepared to go on, and we've got things sorted, we think. Before I bring on our lovely guest, I just thought I'd mention where I am. We are in beautiful Elora, Ontario, Elora. This is a city that was developed it began in 1839, and it's about an hour and a bit away from Toronto. As you can see, there's a lovely river that goes through it, and there's all this stonework. And the housing and everything, if I can move away here, it's really very picturesque, and it happens to be a destination point for weddings. There is a lovely gorge and a mill and all the stonework that comes with that. They've done a fabulous job. I find it interesting that whether it's Elora or Fergus or Guelph, any of these surround in about 300 square miles around here, there's not one place for rent. Because I was looking at this place and going, yeah, I might like to do that. I might like to be there for a while, but there is nothing to rent. So, might be the countryside, but might be a good place for a developer as well. Anyway, without further ado, I would like to introduce you to my guest. Her name is Sarah Stahl. She has a wealth of education behind her, and we're very happy to have her join us today. She is the Director of Communications for a Chamber of Commerce in Alabama. So before we log on, before we get Sarah to join us, can I please ask you to look up above the post and join StreamYard, and then we will be able to see your comments. Such as Christopher. Hi, Judith, wherever you are. I am in Elora, and it's fabulous. And we've got Mary Sloan. You know what? There's no Uber, Mary. There's no Uber. There's no Airbnb. There are a few very elegant, posh hotels and guest houses, and that's about it. Development's wide open, people, and it's a beautiful place. So, without further ado, let's say hi to Sarah.
Hello.
Good morning, Sarah. How are you?
Good morning. Allure, is it Allure or Allure? Where do you live?
It's Elora, Elora. I don't live here. I do travel around quite a bit. I winter in Mexico most of the time.
Okay.
And I summer in Canada, and I happen to be doing a pet sit. So I have two lovely kitties I'm taking care of for 6 weeks. So for 6 weeks, I'm in Elora.
Elora sounds similar to Jackson County here in northeastern Alabama, where I live. It's a smaller town. It's about an hour north of Huntsville, and we're sandwiched in between the mountains and the Lake Gunnersville, and development is also wide open. We recently had a Google data center is actually on site building the 11th data center in the world here in Jackson County. And so development is very wide open here as well.
Oh, excellent. Nice to find these little nuggets,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Before we go on, I'd like to mention this Facebook user, Roll Tide. This is someone who has not signed into StreamYard.
No, but they definitely are from Alabama if they're saying Roll Tide.
So there you go. Please roll into StreamYard so Sarah can find out who's making that post. Cool. Well, that's good that you explained Roll Tide because I didn't quite get that.
It's a heated football battle between two colleges here in Alabama. Yeah. So depending on what people say, like Roll Tide, when people say Roll Tide, you know what school they root for.
So now you didn't always live in Alabama?
I did not. Nope. I am not an Alabama native.
You,
I get reminded that a lot too. Yeah,
you,
but I love it here,
you
absolutely.
find that your accent is changing the longer that you're there? Are you becoming more Southern? Are you Southern girl?
I I don't think I actually accents are a funny thing. I don't think I have an accent at all. I hear
Really?
myself and I sound very neutral. Sometimes I feel like I have a little twang sometimes, but the people here tell me I have a northern accent. So I don't know what I sound like. I don't know
I'm
where I sound
sure I'm sure to them you might have a northern accent.
like.
To
Yeah.
me, you're certainly creeping in on the southern girl,
All
you know.
right, all right, good.
But
So I'm
that's all good.
fitting in more and more. Good.
Excellent, excellent. And I have noticed that after my second bourbon neat, I'm very southern myself. The only
It's a
thing
great thing that can happen to anybody.
Sarah, you attended Southern New Hampshire University after going to Faulkner.
Yeah,
Um, your education is in business admin, and then you got into marketing. So
I
tell us a
did.
little bit
Yeah,
about your journey from the north to the south and how that came.
sure. It's a roundabout journey, so I'll talk about that. I actually have always wanted to own my own business ever since I was in high school. I was petrified to go to college. When I got into like 11th and 12th grade, I was like, college just seemed not for me. It just seemed like a distant, fuzzy thing that people said I had to do, but I didn't feel drawn in that direction. So I didn't know what to do. I had really not a lot of direction as far as what to do after high school,
Oh,
but I had an older brother, and my older brother joined the military. So that became what I did because I thought, well, he did that and he traveled and the military pays for college, and I'm going to try that for a little bit because I wanted to travel and I didn't feel comfortable going right into college. So I actually joined the Army right out of high school, and my first duty station was Germany, which best possible experience a 19-year-old could ever have, I
were you
think.
in Baden-Baden?
No, I was in Stuttgart.
Ah, okay, excellent. Was
That's
it
where
good?
I started. That was my first duty station, which was European Headquarter Command. So it wasn't the typical military experience for a private, in the military.
So
But
you were administrative rather than active.
I actually went in finance because when I went to the recruiter, I was like, I don't know, I like business. And so they put me into finance. So
Excellent.
I helped all the soldiers on our base get paid and taken care of, and took care of all their financial needs and that kind of thing.
That's valuable.
Yeah,
Excellent. Good for you. We
absolutely.
needed you too.
Yeah. So
And
then we had our first child in Germany. Our oldest daughter was born in Germany, and our unit was getting ready for a deployment. That was after the war started. And so this is around 2002 time. And my husband and I just made the decision when we were both military, and we made the decision that I was going to get out because when you're both military, you technically can both deploy at the same time. And then you have to send your kids back to like parents or grandparents or whatever.
so they
And
can't stay with the person who's grounded.
no, not necessarily. So if
Oh,
my husband, and that's when the war was building up at the time, so everyone overseas was deploying, and we were overseas at the time, and we just decided that's not how we wanted to start our family off. And
yeah.
so I got out of the military. And at that time, I don't know if things have changed now or not, but at that time, females were able to get out of the military if they were pregnant, and it was like a um, family plan. It was an honorable discharge. It was a decision that the military honored, which I thought was very great, that
That
they
worked out
value.
for you. So we're
Mhm.
happy.
Yes. Yeah. So then I became a military spouse, and we traveled the world. After Germany, we went to Panama City, Florida. After Panama City, Florida, we went to Montgomery, Alabama, and that's actually how we found out about Alabama. After Alabama, we went to Wichita, Kansas. And so we just it was kind of neat, the fact that when you're in the military, you get to get your feet wet and see like where you like and where you want to live. And my husband had deployed in 2014 to Afghanistan, and at that time we had 3 kids, and we had just got to Wichita, and our lives changed again, and we decided this is not how we want to continue with our family. So we got out of the military about 3 years ago, and we didn't have a home. And so I actually, while I was a military spouse, I had started several businesses. I used to make high-end wedding invitations on Etsy and sell on Etsy, and I did really, really well, but I was always in the red because I didn't know how to run the back end of my business. And so that's when I decided to go back to school. I went to Faulkner when we were stationed in Montgomery and got my business degree. It was completely, this is no fault of Faulkner, but I was very bored because at that time I had already run a business, and I was thinking they were going to give me the tools I needed, but it was just very general, basic business knowledge. And so I thought, well, I could figure this out on my own. I'll just figure out how to run my business on my own. And while I was in school,
We all think that.
Yeah. I fell in love with marketing. And specifically what I fell in love with is the psychology aspect that really nobody talks about. What you hear a lot is sales, and sales is not marketing. That's another thing that I talk a lot about, is drawing the divide and the line between sales and marketing. It's not the same thing. Sales is the exchange of a product, where marketing is the management of a profitable relationship. So that's something I have been very vocal about, because when we transitioned to Alabama, life was very difficult coming out of the military. We say we're 21 now, because we feel like when we got out, we were 18 all over again. You start all over again. Really, you do when you get out of the military.
Can I interject for just a moment?
Yeah.
I have a point of issue.
Sure.
We traveled the world. You mentioned 3 different states in the U.S.
Yeah.
Which to me isn't quite traveling the world. I was hoping to hear of some other places that you might have been, but you were stationed in Germany.
Yeah.
And married, you met your husband, married, had your children, came back to the States.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere else that you have traveled or would like?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's hear just a little bit about that before we get right into
Sure. I didn't know that's where you wanted to go, so I glossed over that, but that's totally fine. We can talk about that. So when I was stationed in Germany, I deployed to Bosnia for about 4 months, and while I was in Bosnia, I got to do some really neat finance excursions where we had to go into remote areas to pay. So I've been all through the back roads of the Balkans in a Humvee.
Excellent.
Took a trip. I didn't even know where to go. This is how the military is when you're a lower rank. You don't really know what's happening. You just go along with what is being told. And so
that's right.
We got into a Black Hawk to go on a payment mission, had no idea where we were going. And we either had a fuel issue or some kind of technical malfunction, but we ended up in a field where the special forces folks set up a perimeter to protect us for about 2 hours until where were we? We were in Budapest. So Hungarian military came about 2 hours later and brought us to some school where we slept in a gym. It was like a gym. And then in the morning, our commander was like, "Hey, we're in Budapest. Let's go exploring." And I'm like, "Where is Budapest?" I didn't even know what Budapest was at the time. I'm 19, but that was
an adventure.
That was an adventure, and we all had one pair of civilian clothes on us, which was nice because when we wear our military uniform in places like that, especially in Bosnia, I don't know if you know about the history there or not, but when we were in our military uniform, we have a lot of hungry children coming up to us, pulling on our uniforms. It's heart-wrenching. And so when we got to wear our civilian clothes, we got to enjoy it. It's hard to enjoy, that circumstance when you're in military uniform and being treated that way, because we all care. We all have hearts, and we're focused on what's in front of us instead of the adventure, the surroundings. And so Budapest is a really neat place to travel. And then I also got to go to Barcelona for about a week. And I saw the bullfights before the bullfight there. I heard they're no longer even legally allowed to do bullfights in Barcelona anymore, but I got to see a bullfight in the Colosseum. So that was pretty incredible. And then, of course, we've been all over Europe. We just drove all of France, Italy, Switzerland.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing some of that with us.
Yeah.
It's just nice to get to know not just the marketing and the chamber side of
Yeah.
you, but to get to know you a little bit more personally. So I appreciate
I tell people the whole life already, and people look at me and say, well, you're too young to have done that. That's usually what I get back in return. And I just say, all right, I usually don't contest or anything because I don't, but I do. I feel like I've lived the whole life.
I understand when you've done all those things at an early life. You do get to the point, I think, when you feel quite blessed for all the wonderful opportunities that have come your way. And as Christopher does mention, we certainly do thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you for your support.
Yeah. So we're back then. If I could switch back now, I'm sorry to have diverted you when you were just starting on a roll there, but I did want to do that. And I'm glad we did. Black Hawk Down, girl, she was there. Okay, so go ahead. Let's talk now, if we can, if I could swirl you back to a little bit of marketing, the difference between sales and marketing.
Okay. So I'm trying to think of how to get back to there now. So when I graduated from Faulkner, I thought I was good. I felt good, like, oh, I've got this business degree now. And I was 31 when I graduated with my bachelor's. And I thought, oh, okay, this is good. And then I got my very first client, which was a one-to-one technology company. They basically set up the whole infrastructure for schools that, have devices and Wi-Fi for their school to run devices and that kind of thing. Okay. And so their sales were, multi-million-dollar sales. And so they hired me to figure this social media thing out. They had $15,000 that they were going to spend on the radio. And I happened to know one of the directors of one of their locations. And he said, we got this $15,000, but we're looking to shake things up a little bit. You talk a lot about social media. I can tell you're very passionate about it. I think we want to test it out on you and give you this $15,000 and see what you can do. Wow. And the first thing I always do is I'm always petrified at first because I'm like, oh, can I deliver on what I think I can deliver on, And so the first thing that his CEO, they ended up hiring me, and the first thing the CEO said was, can you prove the ROI of what you're doing? And the first thing I thought was, you would never ask the radio that. But because you're my customer, I want to make sure that you're more than satisfied with the service that I provide. So I started digging really deep into analytics and Google Analytics and social analytics while I was working with them on about a 6-month contract. And
so that was when you got your Google Analytics certification then, right?
No, I hadn't gotten my, I actually just got my Google Analytics certification like 6 months ago. And now I'm 36. But I just dove in on my own, and because I was passionate and I wanted to find the answer. And the more that I dug, and I listened to, if you ever heard of Social Media Examiner, they're one of the top marketing education platforms. And I listened to every podcast, and I tried to get to know every major marketing influencer at the time to figure out what they know. And has anyone figured this ROI and analytics thing out yet? And I found out no. I hit a platform and or a glass ceiling. And I was like, no, everyone's wondering the same thing. I'm right there, right along with them, trying to figure this out. And so I started seeking out schools that trained in analytics and the psychology of marketing and how the two mix. And that's when I found University of Florida has a social media marketing master's. And I didn't have enough VA benefits left to get my master's certification with them. So, but I had enough to get, I'm sorry, I didn't have enough to get the master's degree with them, but I had enough to get the master's certification, which was four of the first 4 master's courses. And they were all analytics driven and psychology driven. So I was like, that's the one I'm going to take just so that I can figure this out. And they were really good. They helped fill a lot of holes for me. And during that time, that's when I started to figure out social media ROI. And I boiled it down to this. You can only figure out 50% of social media ROI because ROI is a math problem and dealing with people is not math. And dealing with people is the other 50% of social media marketing or marketing in general. And so there's always going to be a portion that you can track and that you can make tangible and that you can say, this caused this, but there's always going to be a portion that you can't, and it's more gut understanding your community.
Excellent.
Yeah. So
how did you make the leap then from what you were doing to going into Chambers and being the director of communications?
Sheer life circumstances. So I actually started a marketing, I don't want to call it an agency. It wasn't
a little lag there? No, I think
for a second.
We're okay now.
Okay. So I had started a marketing agency with a friend of mine about 6 years ago called Avant Creative, and we were building really good. She was a brand development specialist and a master HTML coder designer. So she handled all the web development, and her and I will work together on the brand development. I would work on the technical side where she would work on the design side, and we just made a really great team.
Good
and
fit.
So eventually it was a good fit. Her and I had known each other for a long time. We actually worked on invitation designs and things together when I owned the Etsy business. Unfortunately, she passed away 2 years ago unexpectedly. She was my age. It was just
sad. So sorry to hear that.
It definitely threw a wrench in what we were doing. And, there was a few other team members, and we had a lot of fires to fight because she had all the passwords to our customers' websites. And it was a big mess. I definitely learned a lot about the business side of when a partner, coworker, employee dies. It's not a fun process by any means, because not only did we lose our best friend, we lost an asset to the business, and it was it was a mess.
Exactly. And that's quite a growth spurt and deal changer to go through. It's sometimes hard to recover from that.
Yes. So we tried because we're all what?
But the show must go on, and we do have to keep going.
We tried for a while. Things were going okay, but it wasn't the same. Her, you couldn't replace her. There's no replacement for someone in your life like that.
No.
And so the business started to, it kind of stood still. It didn't start to get any worse, but it wasn't growing anymore, and it was just kind of standing still, and we were maintaining our clients. And meanwhile, we're now turning 19 in our life, and we have 3 kids, and my husband was having trouble finding work, and we're trying to get on our feet. And we actually lived about 1.5 years off of his 401k because there wasn't a lot of money coming in. So I just kept trying to make the business work for about a year and a half through all of that.
Oh,
Yes, it was like our kids were on Medicaid because we had no insurance and we couldn't afford insurance. And that was a whole other level because I didn't feel comfortable with my children being on any kind of government assistance. But it kind of, that happening kind of showed us, okay, this is where we're at. That was a reality check of this is where we are right now. And so how are we going to work our way out of this? So I started
to regroup.
Yes. Yeah. Just like we need to dig out of the hole so that we can get to the top and then look at where we want to go, kind of a thing. So then I started looking for work everywhere. About an hour to an hour and a half radius, I was looking for any kind of marketing position. And that's when I discovered most companies think marketing and sales are the same thing, because I would look for a marketing position and it would have some kind of marketing title. And then I'd look through the description and it was all sales. Everything was sales. Even the salary was based off of a percentage of sales. And I was
Right.
like, this is not marketing. So I would even go, I probably went on about 25 interviews in about an 8 or 9 month span. And I don't have anything to lose. Like I said, I feel like I've lived a whole life. So I say probably more than I should just because I'm honest and it is what it is. I think life is what it is. And so I would go in and they'd say, well, why do you want to work here? And I'm like, well, first of all, before I answer that question, you're going to need to justify this position because you say it's marketing, but it sounds like sales. Please tell me first what you want from me. And if it ended up being sales heavy, I'm like, I don't think this is the right fit for me. And a lot of times it ended up being very sales heavy. And so
did you end up being in a position of education for these people? You have, they've got this ad in the paper and they think they know what they want. And then someone comes along who actually knows what's going on. But it's not your job to educate all these people, I guess. I mean, you go to the interview, you decide it's me for no, and on you go.
Yeah.
You have to develop your own.
Yes, and there's enough information on the internet to get the job description right. So that's where I kind of feel like there's some deception going on, and or they just don't know the difference between marketing and sales. So at that time I was still building Avant, and so I did a lot of videos on LinkedIn because I thought this is a good platform to educate on this. So I did a lot. You could go through my LinkedIn history and I have a lot of videos about the difference between sales and marketing. And some of them are like fun. And I use collard greens, like fresh collard greens, and then canned collard greens, and then explain the difference between, canned collard greens are marketing because they have a long shelf life and they develop over time, where fresh collard greens go bad within like four or 5 days because a sale or driving sales, it's just a blip in the, kind of like if you're in a hospital and you see your little doot doot, when your heart beats,
right?
That's what the sale is. The line continuing to go, that's your ongoing marketing. That's your lifeline. And so I've done a lot of I try to simplify it the best that I can, because I have other marketing friends that we feel the same way about this. People overcomplicate marketing and sales. It's so simple.
I love the point of view, and I think your examples are great. How was that received in general in LinkedIn? Was that a good platform? You were hoping that it would turn out to be the place for you to share this?
So I did that like when LinkedIn first started their video. They added video. I think that was like a year and a half, 2 years ago. So it was like very new. And I was like, I'm going to stand out and I'm going to teach some people if nothing else happens. And so it was received very well.
Good. And so how did that lead you to Chambers?
So when I was desperate, I'm going around in all these interviews.
Uh-huh.
And I was tired. I was so tired. So it was probably a year in total, but like maybe 8-9 months in concentration. I was like, and that's a part-time job. Looking for a job is a part-time job in itself.
Oh yeah.
And I got
that's a
to
full-time job.
the point where I was like, I've been working 8-9 months on this. I could have been putting that time into my business. And I started to feel like maybe this is the wrong thing to do, you know, because we were looking for like quick cash to stop our bleeding, you know, that was
Right.
happening in our financial situation, and it wasn't working out that way. And so
I think we've all been there. I think we can all appreciate what you were going through. And you do get desperate, and you do get a little
yeah,
scared, and you start to question everything. Am I going in the right direction? As you say, should I have spent that 8 months elsewhere on something else? I could have done something.
if we didn't have 3 kids, it probably would have been very different. But, you know, 3 kids makes it a lot more scary.
Oh, huge.
So I saw, you know, I was like in a weird desperation mode where I'm like, I'm tired. These people don't know what they want. They're not looking for a marketer, but I need something. Should I focus on the business? Like, I didn't know. Even my husband and I were like, we just don't know. We were at our lowest then. We were, I don't want to say we were, I don't know what depression is really, but we were just, we just felt heavy, and our outlook was so negative, and we just were at a very low point.
Right.
And so
depression was an element. It can't go through all that shit, quite frankly, and not have a little depression.
So I just happened to be looking online one day during all that, and you know, probably up at night, you know, like maybe I'll find something, you know, and I'm searching, and I see this director of communications job at a town that was kind of close. But we live in such a rural part of Alabama that all the interviews I was going to were like the bigger cities that were like an hour and a half away, and they didn't know what they wanted. So I was like, this can't be right. This cannot be right that a rural community is looking for a director of communications and actually knows what they want. They even called it director of communications, which I hadn't seen.
Good start.
Yeah. And so I applied for it. And about 3 weeks later, I got a call. And, you know, at this time, you know, I had applied, but then time's going by. So I'm like all in my business now, because I'm like, that didn't work. I'm all in my business. I'm going to try to keep building this. And I get a call from my now boss, Rick Roden, and he's like, hey, yeah, we got your resume, and we'd love for you to come in for an interview. And I'm like, okay. So I go in, and there's like 4 very serious gentlemen, and I'm like, all right, this might be something.
Panel interviews, they're the worst.
They turned out to be board members, which this is my very first experience with the board. I know nothing about boards until now, but I knew nothing.
Had you ever been to a chamber meeting before, or were you any advised on chamber? No. Whole new.
I never even joined the chamber, because I would reach out to chambers whenever we were in the military, and we'd move around, and I'd have a business, and I would reach out to chambers.
Right.
Crickets. Never heard back. One chamber, I even said, okay, they have an online application. I'm going to fill out the form. If they call me back, I will join.
Okay.
Never called me back.
Wow.
Nothing. So
That's
I was like,
good.
What do they even do? Like, I'm here building my business, and I don't know what I need you for. Like, that was my perception. So then in the interview, right, I'm exhausted, burnt out, up early, up late, working on my business, trying to put myself together the best that I can. And, you know, they're asking me all the typical questions. And I think I interview pretty well, because I talk like this. You ask me a question, you get an answer. I'm always the same person, no matter what.
Excellent.
And so they were asking me, like, do you understand analytics? I'm like, blah, 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 blah. They're like writing notes. Can you explain that again? Like, they're like, so I was like talking way over their head, which I wanted to, because I'm at the point in my career where I know some stuff. Okay.
Right.
I know some things. I know I look young. I know I sound young. I know you think I've been an at-home mom for 10 years. I understand all that. I know how my resume looks. I've never had a real job. I understand, but I still know some things, even though that's your perception of me.
That's excellent, though.
So,
what a wonderful spot to be in, where you've just gone way above their heads and impressed your socks off, that they have to ask you to dummy it down a bit for them so they can get it. I love it.
So one of the guys we connected, he was prior military, retired Army guy. Like, we had deployed, like, we understood each other. We understood each other's language. We knew where each other had been. We respected where each other had been. And he had worked with the Huntsville Chamber, which Huntsville is on track to be the biggest city in Alabama within the next 3 years, and it's about an hour away from us. And so he had worked with the Huntsville Chamber for years, so he had some really good perception and understanding of things as well. And so his question to me was, well, do you even want to work here full time? And I said, well, to be honest, I don't even know if this is the legitimate position. I've been on so many interviews. Usually it says marketing, but it's sales. And so I kind of need to hear from you guys, like, what is this and what do you want from me?
Right.
So then they explained everything. And I said, well, I'd like to try you guys out. It sounds like you're headed in the right direction. Everything does sound really good, but I don't know if I'm ready to commit myself full time because I do have a business. So I would like to suggest I start off part time.
Good.
And they were all like, no, we're looking for they thought they knew what they wanted. They're like, we're looking for a full-time something. I'm like, well, you don't have to pay me insurance. And I would work, 30 hours a week, or was it 30 hours? I worked 3 8 hours a day. So 24 hours, 24 hours a week. And I was like 3 days a week. Cause I have some other commitments. I had other commitments in Chattanooga at the time. And they're like, well, I don't know. We'll think about it. So another thing about the interview was there were they had like 60 something resumes come in. They took about 2 months to narrow it down to 3 people. I was the only one that showed up. We were supposed to have like a group interview with all 3 of us together.
You're the only one who showed up.
So whenever I speak at, like, the Rotary asks me to speak in like local civic organizations. And so whenever I speak and I tell the story, when I get to that point, I always say, so I am now the communications director by default, because I was the only one that showed up that day.
Wow.
So it worked out really good. And then, I went home not thinking much. I was like, they're probably not going to go for the part-time, they kind of seemed like they knew what they wanted. And so 2 days later, I get a call from Rick, and he's like, hey, we want to offer you a job part-time, $30,000. And I'm like, you got it. So I started part-time there. And
come on, that was a real no-brainer for them. What were they going to say? No? I mean, if nobody showed up out of the city, they could go back and address some of the other from the applications, but
yeah.
Really?
Well, the neat thing to me was one of my other coworkers, she had been in HR for like 24 years before she took on the position that she was in at the chamber. And so her and I became very close. And she told me later on, she's like, girl, once we looked at your resume, we were like, you are too expensive for us, is what she told me. But it was a good time. Like, I would have taken anything. Like, I wasn't at a place in my life where I felt too good for anything. And so I was like, no, absolutely not. Like, I've been humbled by life. I really think I've been humbled by life. And so it was just a good combination. And then, so that was in September of last year. And then our tourism director retired in March of this year. Okay. And so my boss was like, we got extra money in the budget. We're making you full time. You have done so much here. So it was about 6 months, and I worked my way into full time. And I have worked very hard to transform the chamber, because I was a business owner. I
Yes,
was frustrated with the chamber.
I
I didn't
understand.
understand what it did. So the first 2 months I was there, I called it a listening tour. I met with as many people as I possibly could, from the mayor all the way to small business owners, to industry leaders, to citizens, to the library. I talked to as many people as I possibly could in about 2 months, and they all threw up on me, which was probably the best thing that could have happened, because everything that everyone said, I wrote everything down, and there was a trend. And the trend was, what does the chamber do? What are you doing with that money? It looks
Mhm.
like you just sit in your ivory tower and,
Oh, yeah.
whatever,
Nothing
and
to show for it.
you're not involved in the community. You don't give back to the community. And I went to my boss and I was like, you're experiencing a PR crisis. So that's what I walked into. Um, but the neat thing about it is it was a crisis, and we all came together to fix it. Once we recognized that it's a crisis, I have such a great team at the chamber, that everyone was like, let's fix this. So we took
Yeah.
all the feedback and we have been fixing it. And so now, I really started in like December kicking off, because after I did the listening tour, then I came up with a holistic plan on what
Mhm.
we're going to do for 2019. And then January 2019, we started implementing the plan that I had built. And now, most of that is based off of social media, you know?
Getting the word out, because obviously the community didn't have a lot of value in the in what the chambers did. So what an amazing experience for you to go out and hear all of this dissension in the community,
Yeah.
and what an excellent foothold it gave you in the chamber to be able to be the person who resolved it, and you are the hero.
I don't know about, to me, it's ongoing. It's very much ongoing. And um, now the things that we're hearing in the community are so encouraging. We're hearing things like, um, you're on the right path, but you got a ways to go. You're headed in the right direction. We had another member, we have a couple of members that are pretty consistently encourage us, um,
Good.
which hadn't really happened very much in the past. And one of those members emailed us the other day, and she's like, look, I am hearing so many things. You are turning so many heads in the community. I know people don't say the nicest things about you, but you keep going. Everything you're doing, don't stop. And so,
Excellent.
you know, that's encouraging, because before we had heard a lot of negativity, except for with like the pockets of people who were connected to
The
the
major
employees
supporters,
and
yeah.
understood.
Yeah.
Now we've got the community coming behind us. And last month we had a record-breaking month of new memberships. And so that's marketing is. This is, if you could see, this is how many memberships
Yeah.
I sell, but we have had record-breaking membership numbers. So how does that happen if I'm not
If you're
selling?
not selling. That's right. Because you're marketing.
I'm marketing. And the difference is, marketing is managing those relationships and telling an ongoing story. And that is all I do. And we just had, I think we've had already 4 or 5 new members this month.
Excellent. Excellent. Isn't it wonderful that obviously you have the support? Sometimes uh, higher up, the powers that be, they'll say, okay, we need this, we need this, we need, and they get the person in, and then they put so many pressures and constraints on them that they can't do what they were hired to do. Now it looks like they fully embraced you and letting you run with this.
I have the best boss, and
Wonderful.
I tell him, I'm like, I got to be honest, I was nervous to have a boss after not having a boss, but he is the best. He's like, I hired you to do a job. I hired you because of your expertise. You come and do what you got to do. And he doesn't micromanage. He's just, every time I go to him with something, he's like, yep, sounds good, do it.
Is that the military fellow?
No,
Oh, okay.
he's on the board, but
Interesting.
my boss he's incredible. And, you know, this is something kind of funny. I don't know how much you know about organic engagement, but organic engagement is the measure of what you're doing on social media, how it brings a return on dollars spent with your organization. So
Okay.
that is the metric. Organic engagement is the metric to measure the health of sales in your organization.
Okay.
So to put it into perspective, most companies have somewhere between 5 and 10, 12 organic engagement on social media, whether you're Coca-Cola or whether you're the diner down the street. Most people have about, 5 to 12% organic engagement. So my goal is always to be above that. And I like to shoot for 30% because that's a little over double than the national average or the worldwide average. And I just always like to always build up my goals and then reach a goal and then go past it.
The sky. Why would you aim for the sea, right?
Right. So my initial goal was, because when I came on board, they were about 9%, 12% organic engagement. And I use a tool called Agorapulse to manage this and monitor this. And so my goal first was 30%. So I say all that to say, we have been averaging between 98 and 130% organic engagement for the last 4 months.
Wow. Sarah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Woo-hoo.
Which is...
Let's hear it for Sarah.
That's why we've been having so many memberships. Because again, that organic engagement is a direct relation to dollars spent with an organization. And so that organic engagement has been maintained. Now, from a professional standpoint, I'm waiting for that to kind of like come down at some point and even out. Like, I'd be happy at 60%.
Yeah. Hard to keep that up, isn't it?
I'm trying.
The town is only so big.
The way that I do that is I use all of our social media, and Agorapulse comes with some really powerful reports that are very easy to read, and it tells me what time is the best, what is the best day to post, what time of day is the best day to post, but it always changes because, again, the other side of marketing is dealing with people and the psychology of people. So as life things change, people are online different days of the week and different times of the week. So I monitor that, and that's when I post every single week it changes. And so that's when I post or schedule for my most important post I want to be seen the most.
We have a question up here from Chris about asking if you use much Facebook Live for the chamber. Is that part of your parcel?
It is.
Yeah.
Every Tuesday, we have a show called 2-Minute Tip Tuesday on Facebook, and I go live. And you can go back and look at the videos to see what they look like on the Mountain Lakes Chamber of Commerce page. And I give a tip. And at the end of the tip, I ask a question. And the first person to answer the question gets $20 to spend with one of our members. So it's another kind of integration to give value to our membership, because they actually have to go to our website and look through our list of members and choose who they want to spend $20 with, and then we buy them a gift card with the member of their choice. So it's making everybody happy.
There's a nice comment here from Mary. Your strength is authenticity, and you tell it like it is. Good for you.
Oh, thank
you.
Mary.
Well done, Mary. Loud and clear. Excellent. I think we're all enjoying being able to have you with us today and learn as much as we can. So from a different perspective, in that our group are the influencers who we'd like to have as influencers, let's say, people who are joining chambers looking to broaden their business, as most of us do.
Mm-hmm.
But they're probably making some mistakes when they come in there. You might have some advice for us.
Yes, absolutely. So can you give me an example of a business? Maybe one of the folks watching can give an example or say what their business is. And I'll give
put in what their business is.
I can give a very specific Um,
For instance, let's take Mary. Nobody is coming up right at the moment. Mary builds messenger bots.
okay, Mary with messenger bots, very cool.
That's another very smart lady to accomplish all that. We had her on a few weeks ago. Lovely lady.
Okay, Mary with messenger bots. This is the easiest thing. So, as you know, chambers are nonprofits. They have very little money. Where we spend money, it's very thoughtful. The money. I would
Right.
say more than the money that the chamber is spending. You need to figure out how to use the chamber, your contacts, to build your contacts, to build your network of potential customers. So something that I absolutely love is building relationships with our members who can teach business principles or practices.
Mm-hmm.
Are
Ah,
like desperate to know other, like, how can I grow my business? How can I build? What kind of accounting tips do I need to know for this? What kind of marketing tips? And marketing classes go over like crazy. In fact, just a little to explain this a little better. I don't know if you know what the Main Street programs are across the country. You can, it's called Main Street America, and you can apply to be a Main Street community, and they only choose like 2 or 3 a year or something like that. And it's a whole program that comes in and revitalizes your downtown, your Main Street. So
sorry, I'm Canadian. That must be an American.
okay, yeah, that's why I said I wasn't
So
sure.
thanks for sharing.
So we're a new Main Street community, and part of them coming in is a lot of reporting and connecting with the community to first find out what kind of businesses people even want downtown in their town. And so they give a survey to the businesses, and then they give a survey to consumers. And the number one thing that businesses in our area and in most areas through these Main Street surveys is we need marketing help. We don't really know how to market our businesses. So if you, like Mary, a chatbot is a marketing tool, get to know your chamber professionals and say, hey, I would love to offer this class, this on how to communicate better through message bots, and that kind of thing. And so it's very important. And even if it's for free, that's a great group of people to be in front of, even if you're there for free. And so
it's a new enough proposal to bring to the table that it's new to everybody. There's going to be lots of people interested.
Questions and wondering, and they're like, I've seen this messenger bot thing, but I'm not really sure how to set it up. And then when you go into messenger bot, it's like, the web of like, well, how do I figure the conversation out? And so answering some of those questions. And when members come to me and they say, I would like to get more involved, I would like to teach a class, I'm like, first of all, from a professional standpoint, I kind of vet them to make sure.
Sure.
Are you just
what they're talking about?
Do you know really how to do messenger bot, or are you just trying to like get on some kind of fad? Like that's going through my mind. Like, sure. Are you just trying to jump on to like get some quick business? Because chamber professionals are very protective over their members. Very protective. We only want the best people that are actually going to come in and give them good tools that are going to help their business grow. So first of all, you have to be legitimate. So usually I say, do you have a website I can look at?
Sure.
Social media? Can I see kind of where you're at in your professional journey? But if they check out, like one of our members, she's an Instagram genius. And I've actually been begging her, like, you need to come in and teach a class. So we've been working out teaching a class, because not only will that bring people to the chamber for another reason than, hey, we want your dues, but that brings people to the chamber for a reason that they're getting good feelings about the chamber actually providing them tools to help their business grow.
And the chamber is a business, even if it is nonprofit, it's a business. So they still have to provide value. And I can see where this would help. I'm sure that most of the people that we have in our group, the majority would be in digital marketing.
Okay.
So
You're in a great place. You need
yeah.
to build the relationship with your chamber professionals, because to be honest, the members that I call on the most are the ones that I have gotten to know, and
Right.
I trust them.
Mhm.
And I know where their intentions lie. I know they're not just going to come in and do some sleazy sales pitch. I know that they want to provide value, but I also know that they're trying to build their business. So I am always purposely trying to find ways to connect. I have a member right now. She's an accountant, but she got laid off by Tyson. She had a great job, paid very well, but they laid off like a whole accounting department or something at Tyson. And so now she's scrambling. She's like, I'm trying to grow my accounting business. So on the back end, there's a lot of things the chamber is working on that the community doesn't know about, just because you can't make a promise that you can't keep, so we're always trying to build to the point where we can reveal. So we're actually working on a workforce development training center.
Oh, excellent.
And to help with some soft skills, like there's employees that suffer from not understanding financial health and well-being and that kind of thing. And so because I know her, because we have a relationship, because I have gotten to know her enough to know she's a master accountant, she's being underutilized. I'm like, I want you to come up with some training classes that we can pay you for in this workforce development school or training center or whatever.
Excellent.
So you have to have those touch points. So go to the networking events, go to the board meetings. Like usually board meetings are open. You have to. This is the part of social media I don't like. A lot of digital marketers depend only on social media to grow their business. You cannot do that. You have got to build your business face to face.
That is something that I'd like to share with you.
Sure.
That what we do here, we do have trainings on Wednesdays, and one of the things that we do is talk about it's not about going and selling yourself to the board. It's about finding out how you can fit in and help them.
Yeah.
It's a whole different ball game, and you've got to get to know and go to those ribbon cuttings and go to those parties. Go and meet them.
Internally, when we have a poor turnout for ribbon cuttings, it hurts our heart, because we're like, we want this business to feel so special and to feel so welcome and to feel so part of the community. And how you do that is by showing up and giving of your time and doing that. So when we have a poorly attended ribbon cutting, it's just sad, because we're like, where's the community? Where's the other businesses that they came out to theirs? And, so to be the one, it's not even if you don't talk much, like you don't have to go and be like, I'm here now. And, I'm going to dazzle you with my knowledge of chatbots or no, people just want to know that they see that you've taken your time, even if nobody says that, like, thank you for taking your time. Like, yeah, that would be nice if people always thanked you for taking your time to sacrifice. But
there's nothing worse than having an event and you want to show off and nobody's there.
Nobody comes.
That's all they have to do. They don't say anything. They don't do anything. Just show up.
And then say, hey, introduce yourself to the new business owner, whoever the startup is, or if it's a reopening or whatever, and just say, congratulations. I know this is like a really exciting time. If there's anything I could do, I'd love to support you. Would you mind if I shared this picture and tagged you on my social media so that I could let my community know that you're here now? And guess what they're going to say? Yes, please.
They're not going to say no, are they?
I would love that. So then that's when you start showcasing your digital skills, right? Because now you're going to tag them. they're going to be like, who is this? And they're going to start following you. They're going to start checking you out. They're going to start listening to your lives every once in a while when they pop up. And then they're going to be like, Mary knows about
You're not
chatbots.
selling them anything yet.
No. And they're going to be like,
that's where a lot of them go wrong, I think.
Yeah. Mary really knows a lot about chatbots. Yeah. And, you know, I've been having trouble struggling with my customers. And she talked about how they can help you communicate with your customers better. Oh, Mary's having a class for $5 a person for chamber members and $15 for non-chamber members. Maybe I'll pay the $15 right now, the higher price, just to check her out. Then she goes and they listen and they're like, the chamber's cool. I had a really good time. You know, they gave us a free lunch and it was only $15. And, you know, then it becomes, oh, at the class, you got a list of more upcoming digital marketing classes that other members are offering. Wow. And there's a reduced rate for chamber members where I can actually become a chamber member and spend less on these classes. So I think I'm going to become a chamber member now. That's the actual progress of how that happens.
Excellent. So that would be then one of the top 3 things that you can do to grow the chamber.
Yeah.
That's one of our questions. Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are a couple other things that you can share with us in terms of growing the chamber?
Growing the chamber or
growing the chamber? That's what our question is. I don't know if you can see it from Chris. Is what are the top 3 things that you do to grow?
Oh, I do. Oh, sorry, Christopher, I missed that. Okay,
that's okay.
So I'm trying to think. I use the same premise for a variety of things, right? Okay. It all is the same. I don't change
whatever works.
Well, I don't change my approach. I've used different tools.
Right. Okay.
So another thing I do, and same approach, is we're very active on Twitter. And so I don't know if you've ever participated in or started a tweet chat.
I know that you were talking about Twitter, and that was what caught my eye when you were on the symposium there.
Yeah.
So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. So, excuse me. I don't consider myself an expert. In fact, on my personal Twitter profile, it says there are no marketing experts, and I got a couple of unicorns. We're all just learning as we go. And I believe that very strongly. There are no experts. You know, to be an expert in social media, you have to have been doing it for the day it started. And not very many people have been doing it since the day it started. So, anyways, I had participated as a marketer for Avant. You know, I've gone to social media marketing world, and I participated in a lot of tweet chats in my professional life. So when I joined the chamber, I just started checking out hashtags, you know, like Alabama business. First I was looking for a Twitter chat for Alabama business that we could plug into.
Right.
Nothing. I looked up BizChat AL for Alabama. Nothing. No one has ever used it. So I'm like, wow, there's no business conversation going on under a hashtag related to Alabama at all, except for Alabama business, like politics or government.
That's unusual, isn't it?
So I was like, okay, I cannot let this opportunity just sit here. Like this.
Yeah, run with it, Sarah.
So not when you have an underutilized hashtag that's very specific to your niche, like yes, I know we had to jump on that.
Grab
so I started BizChat Alabama. So it's hashtag, BizChat AL. And it's every single Thursday. We started in January. We started the first week of January. Every single Thursday, I have a guest on, and we pre-plan 6 questions. There's always 6 questions that we ask. They're always different depending on what they're offering, and it's very educational. You know, it's the only people I let sell things are like the big people I've had on, like from the state level. You know, if they have like an upcoming seminar that they want to, it's very difficult to get their time, but they're like, oh, I'll come on and talk about my seminar coming up. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So the neat thing about that is, and this is why I ended up changing my whole talk on the symposium that you listened to, because I had been listening all day, and everyone there knew what a Twitter chat was, and I probably knew less about them than the people that were there. And so I was like, I'm not educating anyone on a tweet chat. I'm going to talk about what happens on the back end. So, and one of the things, as far as growing the chamber, one of the things that's really neat is my approach to people who I would consider maybe possible members, or that I'm trying to build a relationship with. Maybe they'll never be members, but I just want that relationship. Right. My approach to them is, hey, I've been watching you on Twitter. You're very knowledgeable on X business topic. I would love to have you on. I wrote a blog post back in December about, I don't tell them this, but I'm saying to you, I wrote a blog post back in December that explains the tweet chat and educates them and tells them what it is and why we want them there. So I say, hey, if you're interested, check out this blog post, but I'd love to have you as a guest. So they go and read the blog. Some people don't get back to me. Some people are like, most people are like, schedule me, when can I do it?
Excellent.
Some people are like, I don't know much about Twitter. Can you help me? So, and I'm like, yeah. So by the time we get to the actual Thursday at 2:00 Central Time of the tweet chat, I have already developed a relationship. Yes. I have found out more about their business. I have gotten to know them by developing and fleshing out the questions. Mm-hmm. We've had a couple of laughs. We've had a couple of phone calls where I've explained to them how the tweet chat works, because some people think they have to come to my office. And I'm like, no, yeah, you don't have to come to my office. You could be on the beach in Mobile, and we could be, you could be tweet chatting. And I make it very easy. The only thing they have to do for me is provide me a topic that they would like to discuss, provide me a profile picture, and then I come up with the questions. I do all the digital graphics. I do all the promotion. I tag. That's all they do is give me their profile picture and come up with the topic. And then I send my questions to them to make sure they make sense to them as the expert.
Okay. Right.
And then they usually say, yes, great. Or sometimes they have some adjustments or whatever. And so by the time we got to the tweet chat, we're like messaging each other on Facebook, because now we're Facebook friends, and they're like, I don't know if I'm doing this right, and I'm like, you're doing fine. And so we have this whole relationship, right? And then
I don't know, Sarah, you're not very personable. I don't know why anyone would want to.
I struggle with that.
I'm dragging you after this, right?
I do struggle with that. So I understand why you're saying that. So the tweet chat, from a statewide business perspective, we are leading the conversation, but that's just a facade, real. I mean, I'm not trying to manipulate anyone, but that's the outward perception of what's happening, because they see us being very consistent. We're very professional in our graphics. We treat our guests very well. We have fun with gifts on Twitter. So we're like, oh, they know how to use Twitter really well. So they're getting kind of like this in us, that well, where really the magic is happening before that tweet chat even happens.
And when your members that you have, how do you reach out to them? Mm-hmm. Through your website, or?
No, we use Chamber Master, a program called Chamber Master, and most chambers use and we're not a big chamber. We just do what big chambers do.
How many members do you have in your chamber?
We have about 450 members, but in Chamber Master, we email about close to 800 people, because under the members, there's like admin and stuff that they have employees that they want to keep up to date. So we have an internal email system that we email, depending on who we're trying to talk to, between 400 and 800 people. Okay. And I send about 2 emails every week, and my emails are interesting. Because my emails are the way that I talk, but email is so difficult to get across how you talk.
Yes.
But I've had people come up to me and say, oh my gosh, I thought you were going to jump out of my computer screen and hug me, because they can feel what I'm saying. And I even will bullet my email kind of like a text conversation, right? A little bit. So it reads and I'll talk about things like, we're actually having a membership drive by YCC. They're called Your Chamber Connection Professionals, and they're an organization that goes around the country and helps. They put on membership drives, and the gentleman that is the CEO of the company. It's like a whole production. He comes with a zoot suit, and it's a 3-day like extravaganza, and it's themed, and
Okay.
you have 100 local volunteers that are calling people and running new members. It's just a fun thing.
Wow, excellent.
So we've been preparing for that. That's one of the big events that we're preparing for. We're also in August doing we partnered up with NASA, because I don't know how much you know about Huntsville, but Huntsville is the space capital, engineering capital of the country, and they're close by. And NASA has a small business arm, I guess, of NASA, where they help businesses do business with the federal government, right?
Okay,
So they're the liaison between contracts and service providers with the government. So we have partnered with NASA, and in August we're putting on a Launch Your Business with NASA seminar. So these are two things that I have been emailing lately about. But I say things like in the YCC, I'll start off by saying, it's wild, we're going to be rolling on the floors, and it's going to be 3 days of fun. You know you want in, this is how you can participate. And then I go into you could be a sponsor, you can give us swag to give away, you can be a volunteer, you could do this, you could do that. Here's about the YCC professionals, and I usually keep my emails very to the point when I email, and it's very specific about something, but that's how we email all of our members.
That's excellent. Your enthusiasm, I'm sure, carries over. And hey, use what you got, girl.
Yeah.
You got it. So why not got it? But I've got something to talk to you about off air that I think is going to help you out a bit too. I've got another question here from Scott. What are the top 3 biggest challenges the businesses in your chamber face over the next 5 years? That's quite a question.
One, I'm curious where Scott is from, but
Scott is coming to us from. Scott, are you the one in New York? No, Scott's a southern boy. Where are you coming from, Scott?
And I could still answer, but I'm just curious because according to our data and our conversations that we have, we go to Washington every year, and we actually meet with our delegation in Washington every year to discuss regional things that we can fix. And the top thing that we hear is employees.
He's from North Carolina.
North Carolina. So, I mean, I'm sure North Carolina is experiencing this too. I'm just curious, maybe he can confirm this or not, but employees are the biggest challenge right now to business and industry. It is very difficult to find employees right now that want to work, that have a good attitude about working, that hold skills that allow them to cope with fellow employees in the workforce, and know how to budget properly, and know how to come to work without pajamas or slippers on their feet.
Oh no!
There's a
what the hell's going on there?
There's and that's not everybody. I am not trying to paint
exception. I'm hoping.
What's happening is we are in a very interesting time. We have 5 generations in the workforce at one time. And so there's a lot of different perceptions. And one of the things that, I'm kind of in the middle. I'm an old millennial. I'm the oldest millennial. I was born in 82.
Okay.
And so, although I am a millennial, I can relate to millennials, but I wouldn't call myself, I don't know what this typical millennial that they're living in their parents' basement and they feel entitled. And I don't know who those people are, because my friends are millennials and I see them working their tail off. But we definitely have an ideal that's very different about life and how we want our life to be. And this is back to his question about the number one issue is I don't think the pajamas coming to work is the issue. I don't think the can't get along with a coworker is the issue. I think the issue, and this is personally me, just my opinion from what I've observed, is people want pride in what they're doing, especially the younger generations. They want to know that what they're doing is making an impact on the world.
Right.
And if you are working for someone that's just trying to have you get a product out the door,
Okay.
it's very hard to have enjoyment or try to make it work or put a lot of pride behind that. It's a difficult challenge. And because older generations, who are mostly the managers or running the organizations, which is totally fine, want the younger generations to think just like they did. Well, I put up with it and I worked for 30 years and I'm about to retire. Older generations typically, and this is the statistical mindset of the different generations and how they think, statistically, older generations are like, I put up with all of that for 25 years and kept my mouth shut, and then I'm going to get my retirement check. I don't want to work like that. I don't want to work in something that I'm not passionate about for 25 years just to hope that I don't sit around and watch TV and play golf all day.
That's right.
I want to enjoy my life now. Even if it means I have less, then the same I want to enjoy it now as I am when I'm 65. I want to enjoy it the same. I'm not working for some dream. I'm trying to enjoy right now. And so that to me, I think is the mindset difference is causing a lot of this employment friction. And another thing that's causing the employment friction is this push that I got growing up, and most people my age, around my age, got growing up. You got to go to college to be something. You got to go to college to be something. You got to go to college to be something. Now, what are we experiencing? What are businesses and industries experiencing? A lack of plumbers, electricians, welders, any kind of, and so now we've got all these people that are educated and want more money and think very highly of themselves, who aren't willing to come in at these, which I think is their problem too, but they're not willing to kind of come in at these lower levels and work their way up.
That's right.
So it's just, there's a lot, that's the number one problem that we see in that we're tackling as a chamber, that our region has been asking for help with for a long time, is help us fix the workforce.
Excellent. You explained that very well. I mean, that is the thing. I mean, people who have degrees that they were told would get them a great job also has, as we've heard in a couple of podcasts here, have a lot of student loans to pay off, and they want to start at a decent salary. But those jobs, you've got to work your way up, and they don't want to do it. A sense of entitlement seems to be a bit of a problem.
Yeah. And so it's like a vicious circle, because that entitlement came from pushing to get the job. You can do anything. You can go to school and be anything you want, and then you do it, and you have this mounting debt. That's a painful thing to burden.
Yes.
It really is, like, physically painful. And they're like, how do I pay that off? And so now you're seeing a generation of kids coming out of high school now that have been watching people struggle, their siblings or their aunts and their parents struggling with this debt, and they're like, I don't want anything to do with that. So,
well, not only that, when they struggled, they got to the end of it, and how many of them are unemployed?
Yes.
And it's not just because they have a major in history.
Yeah.
Something that doesn't work so well.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the time here, Sarah, and as much as we're enjoying this, I'm very also aware that this we had an agreement. Because
I'm wondering what my husband's going to say when
this is Sarah's family time, and she is taking some of it away for us, and I really do appreciate it. The information that we're getting from you is most valuable. Before we let you go, though, dear, is there a few words that you could of advice that you could give to our members that are coming in terms of how they approach a chamber?
Mm-hmm.
What can they do?
I think you guys are on the right track. I don't think there's anything more I can say to you from just our conversations that we've had in the past and kind of the way you explain this group. I think you guys are on the right track. Approaching chambers with the attitude of what can I do for you and not what have you done for me lately is going to bring that guard down, because you're dealing with other people, right? And the chamber professionals live in a glass house. That's something that we talk about internally a lot. And, people watch us, whether they say it or not, they watch us, and we get a lot of negativity, thrown at us. And so we tend to be on the defense, even if you don't see it in our faces and in our body language. We tend to be on the defense because we're always like waiting for that next. Is everything okay?
Yep. No.
Oh, we're always kind of waiting for that next, like, they don't believe in us either. So just being there and understanding that they're serving their community and then supporting them in that, and keep doing. I think you guys are on the right track with your approach. How can I help you?
Yeah.
How can I build a relationship with you? I couldn't say that any better. That's just keep going with that.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate that, and it's nice to be able to drive that home to the members as well, because that is what we preach, basically.
Good.
So, excellent. So, what are you going to do for the rest of the day, Sarah? You and the kiddies?
Well, we live on Lake Gunnersville, so we're probably going to go swimming.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
All right.
So, Sarah, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much, both for your service in the military and for all you've done and sharing all this with you. You've been a delightful guest.
Thank
and
you.
I hope you don't mind if I keep in touch with you.
Absolutely not. Thank you for having me. Hope everybody has a great weekend.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. What a wonderful guest. Could we ask for anything more? If you would like to be one of my guests, please, or you know of someone who should be on one of our programs, then please let me know. And in the meantime, I think it's time for lunch almost, or just to think about it. Thank you very much. See you soon. Bye-bye.